The sun was shining brightly, the sky was clear. Everything seemed perfect at the Rosewood Garden, a beautiful place known for big weddings. White flowers were everywhere. Soft music played in the background. Guests sat on shiny golden chairs, smiling and talking. The smell of roses filled the air. Mr. Harris stood near the altar, wearing a dark blue suit. He looked happy, but a little nervous. He was in his 50s, a kind and gentle man. His eyes kept looking toward the path where the bride would walk. Today he was getting married again, after many years. His son Ethan was not there yet. Mr. Harris looked around, hoping to see him walk in, but there was no sign of him. Maybe he's just running late, Mr. Harris whispered to himself. Then came the sound of soft footsteps. Everyone turned. There she was, Lena the bride. She wore a long white dress that touched the floor and sparkled under the sun. Her face was covered with a thin veil. She walked slowly, holding a small bouquet of white and red roses. Everyone stared at her beauty. Some smiled, some whispered to each other, but not all the whispers were nice. She's too young for him, one lady said. She's here for his money. Another guest whispered. Mr. Harris didn't hear them. Even if he did, he wouldn't care. He loved Lena. She made him feel young again. She made him smile after many years of sadness. Lena reached the altar. She smiled, though her hands were shaking. Mr. Harris took her hand and looked into her eyes. "You look beautiful," he said. "Thank you," she replied softly. The priest began speaking. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to join this man and this woman in holy matrimony." Suddenly, a loud voice broke the moment. "Stop this wedding." Everyone turned in shock. The music stopped. A man stood at the back of the crowd, out of breath, his eyes wide with anger. It was Ethan, Mr. Harris's son. He walked forward, past the guests, past the flowers, past the shocked family members. His face was red, and his fists were tight. Mr. Harris looked confused. "Ethan," he said, "what's going on?" Lena froze. Her smile disappeared. She looked like she had seen a ghost. Her hands slowly let go of the bouquet, and it dropped to the floor. "Dad," Ethan said, standing close now. "You can't marry her, not until you hear what I have to say." "Ethan, not now," Mr. Harris said, trying to stay calm. "We can talk later." "No, we can't," Ethan said firmly. "This can't wait. She's not who you think she is." A wave of murmurs spread through the guests. Some stood up, some took out their phones. Others looked at Lena with confused eyes. Lena's face turned pale. She stepped back. "This is my wedding," she said in a low voice. "Why are you doing this?" Ethan looked straight at her. "You know why?" Mr. Harris raised his hand. "Both of you, please, let's not make a scene." But the scene had already started. Ethan turned to the crowd. "I didn't want to ruin this day. I didn't plan to speak. But when I found out the truth, I couldn't stay silent." "Truth?" Mr. Harris asked, now looking worried. Ethan reached into his coat and pulled out a brown envelope. "This," he said, holding it up, "has everything. Her past, her secrets, who she really is." The crowd gasped. Lena's legs shook. She grabbed the edge of a nearby table to steady herself. "Ethan," Mr. Harris said, his voice softer. "Now, if you know something, tell me. But don't make wild accusations." "They're not wild," Ethan said. "Dad, she's not even using her real name. She's been lying to you since the beginning." Lena shouted. "That's not true." Ethan looked at her. "Then prove it." Mr. Harris slowly turned to Lena. "Is it true?" She didn't answer. Her lips moved slightly, but no sound came out. "Lena," Mr. Harris said again, more firmly. "Is it true?" She looked at him, her eyes full of fear. Then she looked at Ethan. Finally she looked at the crowd, all waiting, watching, judging. I can explain," she said quietly. "Explain what?" Ethan asked. "The fake name? The fake job? The man you were with last week?" Another gasped from the crowd. A few people started whispering loudly now. Phones were up, recording everything. Mr. Harris stepped back. "What man?" Lena didn't reply. "Who is he?" Mr. Harris asked again. Tears filled Lena's eyes. "It's not what you think." Ethan shook his head. "She was seen with a man, hugging him outside a hotel, 2 days ago. I was forced to meet him," Lena shouted. "He's not what you think. I can explain everything. Just not here. Not like this." "Then when?" Ethan asked. "After the wedding, after you take everything from my father." Lena tried to grab Mr. Harris's hand, but he pulled away. His face was filled with confusion and pain. The priest slowly stepped away, not knowing what to do. The crowd stood in silence. Mr. Harris looked at Lena one last time. "Is there anything else you're hiding?" Before she could answer, a voice shouted from the side. "Someone call 911. Everyone turned. An old woman had fainted from the shock. A man was already dialing emergency services. But even with the call being made, everyone knew the real emergency had just begun. Mr. Harris stood frozen as the guests whispered around him, their voices like waves crashing into his ears. Ethan held the brown envelope tightly, his eyes never leaving Lena, who now looked like a shadow of the confident bride from moments ago. The old woman who had fainted was being helped by 2 guests as someone spoke on the phone to emergency services. But all eyes kept darting between Lena, Ethan, and Mr. Harris. Ethan slowly handed the envelope to his father. "Mr. Harris?" hesitated but took it with trembling hands. He opened it and pulled out a few photographs. His face turned pale. The first picture showed Lena standing outside a hotel at night. She was hugging a man tall and dressed in black. The next photo was of Lena sitting at a restaurant across from the same man, her expression serious. There were also copies of old documents, a driver's license with a different name, financial records showing large money transfers. Mr. Harris's hands shook as he flipped through them. Ethan spoke softly now, so only his father and Lena could hear. Her real name isn't Lena, it's Michelle Carter. She changed it 5 years ago after moving from Chicago. That's where her last husband disappeared. Mr. Harris's eyes widened. What are you talking about? Lena quickly said. That's not what happened. He left me. He was abusive and dangerous. I had to run. I changed my name to stay safe. Ethan said, then why didn't you tell my dad the truth? Lena looked down. Because I thought he'd leave me if he knew. Because I didn't want to relive that nightmare. Mr. Harris stared at her, his heart aching. Why didn't you trust me enough to tell me? Lena wiped her tears. I wanted to, so many times. But then someone found me, the man in the photo. His name is Derek. He was my husband's friend. He started blackmailing me. He said if I didn't do what he asked, he'd tell everyone about my past and ruin my life again. Ethan narrowed his eyes. So you played along. You let him control you. Lena nodded. He said I had to marry someone rich, get close, and transfer money to a certain account. I didn't want to do it. But he said he'd hurt me and anyone close to me. Mr. Harris asked. You took my money? Lena whispered yes. Some, but I swear I planned to stop. I didn't want to hurt you. Mr. Harris turned away from her, the pain in his face deeper than words could show. The ambulance arrived and the old woman was taken away. Most guests had left now, but a few stayed standing quietly nearby, not wanting to miss what felt like a movie unfolding before their eyes. A police car also pulled up. 2 officers stepped out and walked toward the couple. One of them, Officer Daniels, spoke firmly. We received a call about a disruption and a possible fraud incident. Sir, we need to speak with the bride. Mr. Harris looked at Lena. She nodded slowly. I'll go. I want to tell them everything. Ethan said I'll come too. Mr. Harris didn't speak. He only watched as Lena walked toward the police, her white dress dragged behind her like a ghost of the wedding that would never be. At the station, Lena sat in a quiet room, her hands shaking. A woman officer offered her water. She took a small sip. Officer Daniels sat across from her. Can you tell us who this man Derek is? Lena nodded. He used to be my ex-husband's best friend. When my husband went missing, Derek stayed around. He started threatening me. He knew things about what happened that night, things only someone close could know. Officer Daniels asked, did you report him? No. I was scared. Every time I tried, he'd send me a message proving he was watching me. Then he found me here. He told me I had to marry Mr. Harris and follow his plan, or he'd kill me and ruin the man I loved. Officer Daniels asked, do you know where Derek is now? Lena pulled out her phone. He sent me this 2 hours ago. It was a photo of Mr. Harris standing outside the wedding venue from earlier that day. Officer Daniels's face turned serious. We'll need to trace this. He stood up and left the room. Meanwhile, Ethan sat outside with his arms crossed. Mr. Harris stood by the window silent, watching the night sky. After what felt like forever, Officer Daniels returned. We traced the location of the message. It was sent from a motel 20 minutes from here. We're sending a team now. Ethan stood up. I'm coming too. Mr. Harris turned and said, I want to go as well. Officer Daniels hesitated but then nodded. Fine, but stay behind the line. They arrived at the motel where several police cars had already surrounded the building. The air was tense. The night was quiet but heavy with danger. Inside room 6, a light flickered. Officer Daniels spoke through a megaphone. Derek, come out with your hands up. No answer. Suddenly the door creaked open slightly. A voice shouted back, stay away, or I'll shoot. Mr. Harris stood frozen as the guests whispered round him, their voices like a storm of confusion and shock. Ethan held the brown envelope tightly, his eyes locked on Lena, whose face had gone pale, her hands trembling. She looked like she wanted to disappear, but there was no escape now. The truth was out in the open, and everyone was watching. Ethan slowly stepped forward and handed the envelope to his father. Mr. Harris took it with shaking hands, his heart already sinking as he pulled out. The contents inside were photographs, papers, and printed emails. The first photo showed Lena hugging a man outside a hotel. The second showed them inside a restaurant, their heads close together, deep in conversation. The third was a blurry shot of them entering a building at night. The man's face was partially visible, tall, dark, hair, broad shoulders. Ethan's voice was low, but clear. That man is Derek, her ex-husband, or so she told you. The documents prove he's still around, and she's been meeting him behind your back. Mr. Harris looked at Lena, who now had tears in her eyes. Is this true, Lena? Who is this man? Lena opened her mouth, but no words came. She tried again, her voice barely above a whisper. He's not my husband, not anymore. I left him years ago. I ran from him. He was dangerous. Ethan interrupted. Then why are you meeting him again? And why are you hiding money? Transfers to a secret account? Lena looked at Mr. Harris, her voice trembling. I didn't want this to happen. I didn't mean to hurt you. Derek found me. He threatened me. He said if I didn't do what he wanted, he'd ruin both our lives. Mr. Harris shook his head, confused and broken. What did he want? Lena lowered her eyes. He told me to marry you to gain your trust and send him money slowly so no one would notice. I didn't want to, but he followed me everywhere. He sent me pictures of you, told me he was watching. I was scared. Ethan's fists clenched. So you let him use you and use my father for money? Lena looked at Ethan with pleading eyes. I tried to stop. I wanted to tell the truth so many times, but I was afraid. He said he would kill me if I told anyone. Mr. Harris stared at her, not with anger, but deep sadness. You could have told me. I would have protected you. I thought we had something real. Lena stepped closer, her voice shaking. At first it wasn't real, but then it was. I fell in love with you. I swear I did. I just didn't know how to get out of this mess. A loud noise interrupted. The moment a siren from a police car growing louder, everyone turned as two officers stepped into the garden. One of them spoke. We got a report of a disturbance and possible fraud. We need to speak with the bride. Ethan nodded. She cooperate. Lena didn't argue. She looked at Mr. Harris one last time and whispered, I'm sorry then. She followed the officers as they walked her toward the car. The guests stood silent, unsure of what to say or feel. Mr. Harris didn't move. He just stared at the spot where Lena had stood, his heart heavy with betrayal at the police station. Lena sat in a small room, her hands on her lap, her eyes red from crying. Officer Daniels sat across from her, asking calm questions. Can you confirm your real name? Lena nodded slowly. Michelle Carter, and the man in the photos, Derek Hayes. We were married for 3 years in Chicago. He was abusive, controlling. I filed for divorce, then he disappeared one night and I never saw him again until last year when he found me again and started blackmailing me. Officer Daniels asked, did you report any of this? Lena shook her head. No. I was scared. I thought he'd go away, but he kept coming back. Then he found out about Mr. Harris and gave me his plan. Marry him, gain access to his finances, and slowly send him money, or he'd hurt me. Officer Daniels leaned forward. Do you know where he is now? Lena hesitated, then pulled out her phone. He sent me this earlier today. It was a photo of Mr. Harris taken secretly from a distance with a message below, nice wedding, hope. Nothing ruins it. Officer Daniels took the phone. We'll trace this meanwhile. Ethan sat in the waiting area, his mind racing. Everything he feared had been true, yet he didn't feel proud. Only said his father had been hurt again, and this time by someone he truly cared about. Mr. Harris stood by the window quietly, the pain in his chest deep but silent, like a wound that refused to bleed. An hour later, Officer Daniels returned. We traced the message. It was sent from a motel on the edge of town. We have officers heading there now. Ethan stood. I want to go, Mr. Harris said. Me too, officer. Daniels hesitated, then agreed. Fine, but stay back and follow orders. The motel was quiet and dark. Police cars surrounded it, lights flashing. Room 6 was the source of the message. Officer Daniels used a megaphone. Derek, come out with your hands up. There was silence, then a voice shouted, stay back or I swear I'll shoot. Lena stood behind the police tape, her body frozen in fear. Ethan and Mr. Harris stayed close, watching the room. Tense moments passed, then a loud sound, a gunshot. The door burst open and police rushed in. Seconds later they came out dragging a man handcuffed, his face angry, his mouth shouting curses. It was Derek. Lena turned away, unable to look. Officer Daniels said, we found weapons, phones, and a list of names. He's going away for a long time. Derek's eyes locked on Lena. This isn't over, he growled. Officer Daniels pushed him into the car and drove away. Lena stood silently, tears running down her cheeks. Back at the station she gave her full statement, everything from the past, the threats, the blackmail, the fear she lived with. Mr. Harris listened quietly. No words, just a face full of pain. After hours of talking, it was over. Officer Daniels thanked her and said she could go. Mr. Harris walked her to the door. She looked up at him. I never wanted to hurt you. Mr. Harris nodded. I believe you, but I don't think we can go back. Lena wiped her tears. I know. Ethan waited by the car. He watched them silently as they walked out together. Mr. Harris didn't speak until they were driving home. Thank you, son. Ethan looked at him, surprised. For what? For protecting me from something I didn't want to see. Ethan sighed. I just didn't want you to be fooled again. Mr. Harris nodded. Maybe love makes us blind, but at least this time we opened our eyes before it was too late. The car drove on into the night, quiet, but finally free of lies. The next morning was quiet. The air outside was fresh, but inside Mr. Harris's home, there was a heavy silence. He sat alone at the kitchen table, a cup of untouched coffee in front of him. His eyes were red from a sleepless night. The memories of the day before played in his mind like an unwanted movie. Lena's face, her tears, the photos, the truth, all of it still felt unreal. He looked at the framed picture on the wall, one of him and Lena taken only a month ago. They were smiling in it, but now that smile felt like a lie. Ethan walked into the room. He looked tired too, his shirt wrinkled, his face serious. He sat across from his father and didn't say anything for a while. Then he finally spoke. You okay, Dad? Mr. Harris didn't look up. No, but I will be. Ethan nodded slowly. You don't have to act strong. You know, it's okay to be hurt. Mr. Harris sighed deeply. I really thought she loved me. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. I don't even know anymore. Ethan leaned forward. I think part of her did, but she was trapped. She made bad choices, but I don't think she was evil. Mr. Harris looked at his son. How did you find out about her past? Ethan took out his phone and opened a file. I started noticing small things. Her stories didn't always match. She said she didn't have family, but then I heard her on a call once talking to someone she called D. It didn't feel right, so I started digging. He continued. I looked up her name, but nothing came up. Then I checked her purse when she left it in the car one day. Found an old ID card, different name. Michelle Carter. That's when I hired someone to help. Mr. Harris nodded slowly. You did the right thing, even if it hurt. They sat in silence again. Then Mr. Harris said, I want to know more. About Derek? Who he really is? Why he targeted me? Ethan stood up. Let's go find out. At the police station, Officer Daniels greeted them and led them to his office. We've been digging into Derek Hayes, he said, opening a folder. He has a long record. Fraud, assault, extortion. He disappeared 5 years ago, changed names, and went underground. Turns out, he's been targeting wealthy older men through women he controls. Mr. Harris's eyes narrowed. So Lena wasn't the first. Daniels nodded. No, we found 2 other women who came forward last year. Same pattern. Fake identity, fast romance, quiet money transfers. Both women said they were threatened by Derek to stay quiet. Ethan shook his head. How does someone like him keep getting away? Officer Daniels looked serious. He's smart, doesn't leave a trace, moves often. He uses fear to control, but this time, Lena talked. She gave us names, places, phone numbers. We're building a strong case. Mr. Harris asked, what will happen to Lena? Daniels paused. She's not being charged for now. She's cooperating fully. And the evidence shows she was under serious threat. If things go well, she might walk free. Mr. Harris looked away. His heart didn't know how to feel. Anger? Relief? Sadness? Maybe all at once. Ethan asked, can we talk to her? Daniels nodded. She's in the next room. Mr. Harris hesitated, then stood up. I'll go. Ethan stayed behind. Mr. Harris walked slowly down the hall and entered the room. Lena sat there in plain clothes, no makeup, her hair tied back. She looked up as he entered, her eyes wide. Mr. Harris, she whispered. He sat across from her, his hands folded. I don't even know what to call you. Lena Michelle. She looked down. Lena is who I became. Michelle is who I was. I don't know who I really am anymore. There was a pause. Mr. Harris looked at her carefully. Ethan woke up early the next morning, but his father was already awake, sitting in the living room with a cup of tea in his hand. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that came after a storm. Mr. Harris stared out the window, lost in thought. The wedding decorations were still being taken down outside. Flowers were wilted, chairs being packed into trucks. It looked like the end of a dream. Ethan walked over and sat beside him. For a while, they said nothing. You didn't sleep? Again, Ethan finally asked. A few hours, Mr. Harris replied without looking away. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her. Ethan nodded slowly. You still love her, don't you? Mr. Harris gave a tired smile. I don't know. Maybe a part of me always will. But I also feel like I loved someone who didn't really exist. Ethan looked down. She wasn't all fake, Dad. I saw it in her eyes. She wanted to tell you the truth. That doesn't change what happened. No, Ethan agreed, but it explains why. Mr. Harris sighed. It's just hard to accept that someone could lie to your face while pretending to care. They sat there in silence again, until Mr. Harris stood up and walked to his desk. He opened a drawer and pulled out a small black box. I was going to give this to her at the wedding, he said, opening it slowly. Inside was a necklace with a small heart-shaped diamond. She said she didn't like rings, so I got her this instead. Ethan looked at it quietly. What will you do with it now? Mr. Harris closed the box and placed it back in the drawer. Maybe I'll give it to someone who earns it. Later that day, Officer Daniels called them. He asked Mr. Harris and Ethan to come to the station for an update. When they arrived, Daniels looked more serious than usual. We've got something, he said, guiding them into the office. We've searched Derek's motel room and traced his digital footprint. It's deeper than we thought. What do you mean? Ethan asked. He's not working alone. Daniels explained. There's a network. They use women like Lena to approach older wealthy men, gain their trust, and then slowly drain money. Lena was one of at least 5 women we've found so far. Mr. Harris's eyes narrowed. So she wasn't just a victim. Daniels shook his head. She started as one, but somewhere along the way, she became part of the plan. Whether it was fear or money that kept her going, we don't know. But the other women say the same thing. They were forced. Then they got used to the life. Ethan sat back, frustrated. How do people get so lost? Fear, Daniels replied. And sometimes the belief that there's no way out. Mr. Harris asked, what happens now? We've arrested Derek, and we're building a case against everyone involved. Lena is helping. She's given us names, dates, accounts. It's enough to bring down the whole operation. Ethan asked, will she be charged? Daniels nodded slowly. She might get a deal, lesser punishment in exchange for cooperation. But yes, she'll have to answer for her part. Mr. Harris closed his eyes for a moment. Then he asked, can I talk to her again? Daniels hesitated. She's being moved soon to another location for her safety, but you can see her before that if you want. Mr. Harris nodded. I do. They brought Lena into a quiet interview room. She looked different now, more tired, her spirit dimmer. When she saw Mr. Harris, she looked away quickly. You didn't have to come, she said softly. I wanted to, he replied, sitting across from her. She finally looked at him. I told them everything. I know I can't undo what I did, but I'm trying to make it right. Mr. Harris stared at her. Why didn't you just run away from Derek? She looked down. Because he didn't let me? He followed me everywhere. When I tried to run, he found me. When I tried to disappear, he showed up again. And the more I obeyed, the more I hated myself. Why didn't you come to me? I didn't want you to see who I really was, she whispered. I thought I could hide it, play the role, and then maybe one day you'd actually love me for the person I pretended to be. Mr. Harris said, you didn't need to pretend. You just needed to be honest. She wiped her eyes. I was afraid I wasn't good enough. There was silence between them. Finally, Mr. Harris said, I loved you. The real you. If I had known her, I think I still would have. But now I'll never know if that person ever existed. I don't blame you, Lena said, and I don't expect your forgiveness. I don't know if I can give it, he said, but I hope you find peace. She nodded slowly. That's all I want. After leaving the station, Mr. Harris and Ethan walked outside into the sunlight. The breeze felt warmer today, like the world was slowly returning to normal. What now? Ethan asked. Mr. Harris smiled faintly. We start over. The next few weeks were slow but healing. Mr. Harris spent more time at home. He took long walks, read old books, and even started painting again, something he hadn't done since his wife passed away years ago. Ethan stayed close, helping where he could, but giving his father space when needed. One afternoon, they sat on the porch together. Mr. Harris looked at his son and said, You know, I always thought love was supposed to fix everything. Ethan smiled. Maybe it's not about fixing, maybe it's just about feeling, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Mr. Harris looked out at the garden, now full of new flowers blooming. Maybe someday I'll love again, but next time, I'll do it with open eyes. Ethan nodded. And next time, I'll check her background first. They both laughed softly. The pain was still there, but it didn't feel so sharp anymore. Because even when love ends in heartbreak, truth has a way of starting something new. A soft rain fell over the quiet neighborhood as Mr. Harris sat in his study, staring at the same chair Lena once used when she read beside him. Her presence still lingered in the house like a fading perfume. The days had passed, and the pain had dulled, but the questions remained. How much of her had been real? How much had been a performance? And why, despite everything, did he still miss her voice? Ethan entered the room, holding 2 mugs of tea. He handed one to his father and sat down across from him. You should get out more, he said gently. Mr. Harris gave a weak smile. And go where? Every place in this town reminds me of her. Ethan nodded. I get it, but staying inside won't change the past. It only makes it harder to forget. Mr. Harris looked out the window. I don't want to forget. I just want to stop hurting. Ethan leaned back in his chair. Then maybe facing it is the way to heal, not hiding from it. The next morning, Mr. Harris decided to visit the art gallery downtown. It was a place he hadn't been to since before Lena. He used to love the silence there, the calm energy of color and brush strokes. As he walked through the doors, the familiar scent of paint and old wood greeted him. He moved slowly from painting to painting, pausing at a canvas that showed a woman standing alone at the edge of a cliff. A voice beside him spoke softly. That's my favorite one too. He turned to see an older woman with silver hair and kind eyes. She looks like she's trying to decide if she should jump or turn back. The woman said. Mr. Harris nodded. Or maybe she's just waiting for someone to call her back. The woman smiled gently. Sometimes we wait too long for the wrong voice. They spoke for a while about art, about choices, and about loss. Her name was Claire. She was a retired teacher and a widow. There was something comforting about her. She didn't ask too many questions, she didn't judge, she just listened. After leaving the gallery, Mr. Harris felt a little lighter. Not healed, but not as broken. He hadn't laughed in weeks, but that day he smiled. Meanwhile, Lena sat alone in a small rented room miles away. The authorities had moved her to a safe location until the trial. She had agreed to testify against Derek and the others involved in the scheme. Her world was quiet now, filled with long hours of thinking, writing, and remembering. She often thought of Mr. Harris's kindness, his patience, the way he had looked at her like she was someone worth loving. She had hurt him, yes, but she had also loved him. That was the hardest part. That love had been real, even if everything else had started with a lie. One day an officer brought her an envelope. It came through the department, he said. Thought you'd want to see it. Inside was a letter. She recognized the handwriting instantly. It was from Mr. Harris. Lena, I don't know why I'm writing this, but maybe I just need to say a few things I didn't get the chance to say in person. I've thought about you every day since we last spoke. I've questioned everything, what was real, what wasn't, and I came to one conclusion. I can't separate the truth from the lies, but I can accept both existed. I loved you, Lena. That's the truth, and I believe, deep down, you loved me too. That's the part I choose to keep. You didn't destroy me. You just reminded me how fragile the heart can be. And for that, I don't hate you. I hope you find peace. I hope you rebuild your life. I hope the next version of you is not running, but free. Take care of yourself. James Harris' stares rolled down Lena's cheeks as she folded the letter. She pressed it against her chest and closed her eyes. For the first time in weeks, she felt warmth in her heart. Not forgiveness, not entirely, but grace. She would carry those words with her, always back. In town, Ethan was visiting the police station for a final update. Officer Daniels met him in the hallway. Trial's set for next month, Daniels said. Derek's team tried to get him bail, but the judge denied it. Too dangerous, too much evidence. Ethan nodded, and Lena, she testified. Her cooperation has been helpful. If everything goes well, she might get probation. The air was warm as spring melted into early summer. Flowers bloomed across the small town, and laughter returned to the streets. For Mr. Harris, life had begun to settle into a gentle rhythm again. The pain hadn't disappeared, but it no longer controlled him. He smiled more now. He laughed, even if just softly. And every morning, he wrote in a small notebook Lena had once given him. It was empty when she handed it to him, saying, "Fill it with thoughts worth remembering." Now, it held his journey as heartbreak, healing, and quiet rebirth. Claire had become a regular part of his days. She wasn't trying to replace anyone, and she never asked about Lena unless Mr. Harris brought it up. Her company was kind, unhurried, like a safe place to rest. One afternoon, they sat in a cozy cafe, sharing a slice of apple pie. "Have you forgiven her?" Claire asked gently, stirring her tea. Mr. Harris paused, thinking carefully. "I don't know if I ever truly blamed her, at least, not entirely. She was a victim too. She made terrible choices, yes, but I think a part of her was always trying to escape." Claire nodded. "Sometimes the people we love are fighting battles we don't see." He looked out the window, watching two children chasing bubbles. "I've accepted what happened. That feels more powerful than forgiveness." Meanwhile, Lena walked through the small art center where she now volunteered. It wasn't much, a few rooms, old tables, shelves filled with used paintbrushes, but it gave her purpose. She taught painting to women who had survived abuse, women who understood fear in starting over. With each class, Lena felt a little stronger, a little less ashamed of her past. One of her students, a young woman named Brielle, asked her quietly one day, "How did you get through it?" Lena smiled gently, wiping paint off her fingers. "Someone saw the good in me when I couldn't see it myself. That gave me the strength to become better." "Did they stay?" Brielle asked. Lena shook her head. "No, but their kindness stayed with me." That night, Lena returned to her small apartment and opened the drawer beside her bed. She took out James's letter, the one she had read a dozen times but never grew tired of. She held it carefully, as if it could fall apart. In her hands, each word reminded her that she had been loved, even if it was brief, even if she didn't deserve it then. And that love, more than anything else, had pushed her toward redemption. Back in town, Mr. Harris received a letter. It wasn't from Lena this time, but from the prosecutor who had worked on the case. "Mr. Harris, we wanted to inform you that the legal proceedings are fully concluded. All parties involved in the scheme have either been convicted or entered guilty pleas. Lena Carter, formerly known as Lena Morehouse, officially completed the first stage of her rehabilitation program. She remains on probation and under supervision, but her involvement in assisting our investigation played a key role in dismantling the network." The letter ended with a simple note. "She asked that we let you know, not for attention, just because she thought you might care." Mr. Harris read it twice. Then, quietly, he walked to his desk, opened the notebook, and wrote, "She's finding her way. That's enough for me." Ethan called that evening. His voice was full of warmth. "Hey Dad, just checking in." Mr. Harris smiled. "I'm doing okay. Better than okay, I think." Ethan teased. "You sound lighter." "I am. Life's strange, isn't it? You can be broken in ways you never expected and still manage to grow stronger." Ethan paused. "Do you think you'll ever fall in love again?" Mr. Harris looked at the painting on his wall, a calm sea beneath a pink sky. Maybe I already am." "Just slowly," Ethan chuckled. "Claire, she reminds me that the world isn't over just because something ended. That's a good thing." "It is," Mr. Harris said softly. "It is." Weeks turned. In 2 months, one day, while walking through the bookstore, Mr. Harris came across a display table for a local author. The cover was simple, "Letters to the Past" by Michelle Carter. He froze for a moment, staring at the name. Inside the first few pages was a short note. "To those I've hurt, and those who saved me, you made me who I am today." He bought the book without hesitation. That night, he read it cover to cover. It was a collection of essays, letters, and thoughts pieces of Lena's journey. She spoke of guilt, survival, second chances, and of a man who saw her not as a mistake, but as someone worth saving. His name was never mentioned, but Mr. Harris knew. He felt every word like a quiet whisper of truth. By the final page, tears lined his face, not of sadness, but of understanding. The next day he placed the book on the shelf beside his photo. Alba, not to forget her, but to remember the way they both changed. Claire visited later that afternoon. He handed her the book. "She wrote this?" Claire asked. Mr. Harris nodded. Her real name? Claire looked at him thoughtfully. You okay? He smiled. I think I am. For the first time in a long time? I really am. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light across the living room, Mr. Harris sat by the window and opened his notebook once again. He wrote, "Sometimes, people leave. Sometimes, love doesn't last. But if it changes you, if it wakes you up, then maybe it was always meant to happen." He closed the notebook and exhaled slowly. The past hadn't vanished, but it no longer held him captive. And that, he realized, was what healing looked like. The sky was painted in soft gold as the sun began to rise over the quiet town. Mr. Harris stood on his porch with a cup of warm tea in his hand. The garden in front of him, once filled with memories of laughter and betrayal, now bloomed with new life. It had been a full year since that unforgettable day since Ethan had stood in the garden holding the envelope. Since Lena's secret had unraveled their world, a year filled with pain, reflection, and healing. He took a deep breath and smiled softly to himself. The pain was still there, tucked away in quiet corners of his heart, but it no longer controlled him. It had become a part of his story now. A wound, but a scar, reminding him that he had survived. Claire arrived shortly after, her usual warm smile lighting up the porch. "Good morning, James," she said, handing him a small brown envelope. "What's this?" he asked. "It came to the gallery. I figured you'd want it right away." He opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a handwritten invitation on cream-colored paper. "You are invited to the launch of Still Here, a new art exhibit by Michelle Carter, an exhibition inspired by redemption, healing, and the beauty of truth. Saturday, 6 p.m., Riverdale Art Center." Mr. Harris stared at it for a long moment. Claire watched him gently. "You don't have to go," she said. He looked up. "I want to." That Saturday, Mr. Harris entered the art center slowly. The room was filled with quiet music, soft lighting, and paintings that spoke without words. Each piece told a story of pain, of loss, of becoming. One showed a single red umbrella under a stormy sky. Another was a shattered mirror reflecting a woman's face, not broken, but thoughtful. Each painting felt deeply personal. Then he saw her. Lena stood in the far corner, speaking to a small group of visitors. Her hair was tied back, her eyes calm. She looked different, lighter somehow. Not hiding, not pretending, just present. She turned, and for the first time in a year, their eyes met. There was no rush of anger or sorrow, just stillness, recognition, respect. After a moment, Lena walked toward him. "You came," she said, her voice quiet, almost amazed. "I did," Mr. Harris replied. "I read your book. I saw your journey." Lena smiled gently. "I didn't know if I should send the invitation. I wasn't sure you'd want to see me." "I almost didn't," he admitted. "But then I realized, not coming would mean I was still running." She nodded. "I understand." They stood in silence for a moment, the hum of voices and music filling the space around them. "Your work is powerful," Mr. Harris said, gesturing to the paintings. "You turned your pain into something beautiful." "I wanted to tell the truth," Lena said. "Not just mine, but a truth others could feel. We all carry things, some visible, some not. Art helped me set it down." "I'm glad you're doing well," he said sincerely. Lena looked down for a second. "There hasn't been a single day I haven't thought about what I did, not with guilt, but with responsibility. I can't change what happened, but I can choose what I do now." Mr. Harris nodded slowly. "We all get lost sometimes. What matters is whether we try to find our way back." She looked up at him, eyes glistening. "You were my turning point, James. You may never know how much you changed me." "I didn't save you," he said gently. "You chose to become someone else. Someone better." A small silence passed between them. "Would it be all right if I showed you one more piece?" Lena asked. He nodded. She led him to a small, quiet room in the back of the gallery. One painting hung on the wall. It was simpler man sitting alone, on a bench, staring out at a field of wildflowers. The sky was soft, peaceful. The man's expression was unreadable, but his posture said everything. He was waiting, but not lost. Still, calm, whole. "It's you," Lena whispered. Mr. Harris stood silently in front of it, moved in a way words could not describe. "Why the field?" "Because even after the storm, things grow," she replied. He turned to her, eyes full of understanding. "Thank you." She didn't respond, only nodded, her heart full. They walked back to the main hall. Claire was standing by the entrance, watching quietly. Mr. Harris turned to Lena one last time. "I wish you peace, Lena. And I wish you love, James." He smiled gently and walked away, not with heaviness, but with quiet closure. Claire joined him, taking his arm.